Hello readers, I'm Amy. Today I'm going to be wrapping up the books that I read for Black History Month, starting with The Vanishing Half. So our main characters, our two twin main characters, are from the city of Mallard. Mallard is full of people who are biracial, half black, half white, some mix like that. And it's not a place that's on a map. If people don't know that you're from Mallard, you can pass as a white person in other cities. But if they know that you're from Mallard, they're like, oh, I'm not going to associate with you. I'm not going to give you a job. You're a black person. And the twins in this story run away from Mallard, and you're mainly following one twin. You follow a little bit of the life of the second twin in the lives that they have after Mallard. And one is living the life of a black person, and the other is living the life of a white person. The twin living the life of a black person has a daughter who is described as blue-black. When she eventually returns to the town, she's very much looked down upon. People are suspicious of her because they're like, why would you get with a black man and have such a dark daughter? Like, you're going against our values. You're not helping us. And then the twin that is passing as a white woman has a daughter who is blonde-haired. I believe she has blue eyes, has no idea of her black history. And there's moments in like the second half of this book where she might say to someone like, I'm part black, and people look at her like she's joking. They won't take her seriously. So there's a lot of discussion, as you can tell, of colorism in this book. Colorism is not a topic that I feel like is talked about that much. I've heard of the concept of colorism, but I've never really understood it, and reading this book really gave me a good picture of what colorism is, what the discussion around it is. Something else, I was talking to a friend about this book, and she's like, I don't know how I would picture the characters. And for me, it helped to picture our twins as someone like Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle was hailed as like the first person of color in the royal family, and I finally look her up and I'm like, I mean, she could have more color, but because she has some black in her family history, she is considered a person of color. So, like, that's really kind of like a learning moment for me, and I would picture her as these characters, because if you didn't know, you wouldn't really know. Like, she could easily pass, and that was just a really, it helped me picture these characters, and it really added this side of the conversation that I haven't gotten much chance to see. And I would love to read more books like this, learn more about the topic. This book was great. It's kind of a historical fiction. It introduces, this is the other thing that I loved about the author. She talked about things that most authors wouldn't put in for this time period. So she talks about things related to sex and gender and race that you wouldn't normally find in a historical fiction, because people are like, oh, they didn't really talk about that stuff in this time period, so I'm not going to talk about it. She didn't do that. The author's like, no, I'm going to talk about it. But it didn't include these dramatic moments of finding out. Like, if someone is passing as something that they weren't born as, it's not, oh, suddenly there's this big reveal and everyone finds out and everything goes haywire. It didn't do that. It wasn't about the big reveals. It was just there. And that was really nice to see, because most authors just don't do that. And she's like, well, this is life, and whether or not people talk about it, it's something that happened. So, highly recommend this book. I didn't give it a perfect 5 stars. Everyone seems to be giving this a perfect 5 stars. For me, I prefer something a little heavier with the plot. There is a plot to this, but it's also very, very character driven. I personally would have liked a little bit more action, but I did really enjoy it. 4 stars. Actually, it might have been 4.5 stars, now that I think about it. I don't know. Then I picked up a, novel in verse. I read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And this book, it was like 300 pages, but I read it in an hour because it's a novel in verse. It's similar to something like Ellen Hopkins. I would say I enjoy Ellen Hopkins' writing style a little more, but that said, I am very interested in looking at more of Jason Reynolds' books. He talks a lot about issues of race, and in this one, I believe this takes place in New York City, but you have this boy, he's like 16, whose brother was just recently killed, and he lives by these three main rules. Like, these are the rules of the area that he lives in. You don't cry when something bad happens. You don't snitch on the person that you think did it. And you have to get revenge. And this book is really playing with that idea of you have to have revenge on people. So the kid thinks that he knows who killed his brother, and he's going to go over and he's going to kill this guy. So he gets in the elevator, and throughout this whole rest of the book, like 250 pages of this book, take place over about a minute and a half to 2 minutes. And every single floor on this elevator, so he's on the 7th floor, and as they get to every floor, the elevator stops and someone gets on the elevator. And he communicates with that person, and they go to the next floor and someone else gets on the elevator. And it's having this discussion with this boy of like, should I actually be getting revenge or should I not? He's learning from these people who are getting on the elevator and how they relate to one another and their interactions with one another. And he's got something to learn from that. And as you're going through the book, you're like, is he going to get revenge on the guy who killed his brother, or is he not? I will leave that to you to find out. Definitely a very interesting story. Would recommend checking it out. And then Emergency Skin. So there was this like Amazon Originals series. It looked like mostly sci-fi that came out. N.K. Jemisin was the only one that I was really interested in. But it's a short story. And Emergency Skin, I almost want to say it, I don't know that it explored colorism necessarily, but it was definitely exploring like who's pretty, who's not. So you start off with this description of how there's this perfect person, beautiful body, and as you read on it, I think they're supposed to be a white person, and then they're sent off to Earth and see all of these people, and it's like, oh, these people are actually really cool, and they're really nice, and they're not what we thought they were. And it's kind of exploring how you don't always know who someone is just based on what you hear about them. Getting to know them can completely change your perspective. This book is about 30 pages, and I loved every moment of it. I think N.K. Jemisin does really interesting things with her writing, where she explores the idea of a utopia. You'd think a utopia wouldn't necessarily be that interesting, because the idea of a utopia is, well, everything's perfect and great and we don't have any worries. But she'll like take this one element to introduce to the utopia and kind of play with that. And I don't want to say too much more, because like I said, it's a short story, but at this point, I want to purchase and read everything that N.K. Jemisin writes. She's just a gorgeous writer. I'm not going to read her newest series, starting with The City We Became, because I like to wait on series until there's a couple more books out. I do love N.K. Jemisin, and if you're someone like me who's not super into fantasy, who doesn't read a lot of it, N.K. Jemisin is a great person to get into for science fiction and fantasy, because it's not just the fantasy aspect of it. She leans a lot on racial differences, on gender differences. Hers are more of a social exploration through fantasy and science fiction. These last two books I did not actually finish yet, so Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri and Our Prisons Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. This one, Don't Touch My Hair, I was buddy reading it with Hillary from Melted Books. That's another totally different discussion to have, because her book is called Twisted and has like a YA looking cover, but it's exactly the same book. So that's confusing. Want to have a conversation on that. But Don't Touch My Hair essentially is an academic discussion of race and its history, and particularly the history of hair. Emma Dabiri is Irish. She grew up as one of the only the only, I think, black girl in her area in Ireland. And her history is Yoruba, which is, I think, like an area in Nigeria, if I remember correctly. And a lot of this book is talking about how the issue with race isn't the color of your skin, it's the texture of your hair. And she makes some really interesting arguments for that. Like, how many black women are relaxing their hair so that they look a little more presentable? Yeah, there's a lot of discussion like that in here. I think it's a very interesting argument. I am about halfway through this book. I will say, while I like the discussion we're having, while I'm learning a lot from this, I'm learning some fascinating things about black hair culture. It's definitely not my favorite writing style. In college, there were a lot of books that I had to read, especially Judith Butler. Judith Butler really made me angry because it's like, you can be a smart person. You can talk about these brilliant ideas, but you don't have to talk about it academically. And I mean, most books are much more readable than Judith Butler, but Emma Dabiri does have a very academic writing style to this, so I can read like maybe 2 pages in a sitting before my brain needs a break, because it is just, it's very heavily academic in its writing. It's not the most approachable book. So it would be nice to see a discussion on black hair culture that was just a little more readable. I mean, I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I'm enjoying it. I love what I'm learning. I just can't sit down and read it for more than a couple of pages. And it's a similar thing for me with Prisons Are Obsolete. I don't think this is nearly, it's not at the same level of academic writing, but I think in reading that heavy academic writing, it started slowing me down in Prisons Are Obsolete. And this is a teeny tiny little book, though it also has teeny tiny little writing. But this is just discussing prisons and the culture around them and how they don't necessarily help anything. Like, crime hasn't gone down just because the prison population goes up, and who takes up most of the prison population, and why do we think prisons are so helpful when they're not? And look at some of the history and statistics of prisons. I'm hoping to finish these 2 books in March. I think I need to take my time with them. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the variety that I got in here. Please make sure, of course, to read black authors outside of just Black History Month. I really wanted to focus on black authors for this month, but I do have plenty more that I'm going to read this year. I want to spread them out throughout the year. They deserve as much attention as white people get. Yeah, please keep reading black authors and celebrating black authors. There's some amazing books out there. That's going to be it for me for this video, so please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media, recommend some great authors and books to me, because I am always picking up other people's recommendations. It's kind of become a problem right now. That's gonna be it, so bye friends.